All right, we're back online for the second half of the service. I'm going to do Numbers, the 30th chapter. Now we're going to do it first. We're going to do it in Hebrew, and then we'll do it in English. So this one starts off with Waya Amar Masha. All right, that's what you got. All right, so this is Numbers 31 by Barya. Waya Amar Masha Al Bunyam Yasha'ala Kakol Asherah Tazawa Yahweh Ath Masha. Verse 2. Waya Debar Masha Al Ra'ashya Hama Tawath Labunyam Yasha'ala La Amar Zar Hadabar Asherah Tazawa Yahweh. Verse 3. Ayash Kiyah Yadar Nadar La Yahweh or Hashabai Shabai La Asar Il Napashwa La'a Yakol Debarwa Kakol Hayatazar Mapua Yawai Shaw Salak Ya'ai Shaw. Verse 4. That's youth. Verse 4. Waya Salak Wa Ashar Kaya Thadar Nadar La Yahweh Wa Asarha Asar Babayath Abiyaha Bana Yaha. Verse 5. Washa Mai Abiyaha Ath Nadarha Wa Asarha Asherah Asarha Il Napasha Wahaka Rayash Laha Abiyaha Wakwumwa Ko Nadaryaha Wako Asar Asherah Asarha Il Napasha Yakwum. Verse 6. Wa Hanaya Abiyaha Athar Bayawum Shemaiwa Ko Nadaryaha Wa Asaryaha Asherah Asarha Il Napasha La'a Yakwum Wa Yahweh Yasalak Laha Kiyah Hanaya Abiyaha Athar. Verse 7. Wa Hayawa Fahaya La Ayash Wanadar Yaha Al Yaha or Mabata Shapath Yaha Asherah Asarha Il Napasha. Verse 8. Washamai Ayasha Baya Wum Shemaiwa Waha Karayash Laha Wakunwa Nadaryaha Wa Sarha Asherah Asarha Il Napasha Yakumwa. Verse 9. Wa Bayawum Shemai Ayasha Yana Ya Awathar Wahakpar Ath Nadarha Asherah Al Yaha Wa Ath Mabatar Shapathyaha Asherah Asarha Il Napasha Wa Yahweh Yasalak Laha. Verse 10. Wanadar ala Mana Waga Salak Waga Rashar Ko Asherah Asarha Il Napasha Yakwum Al Yaha. Verse 11. Wa Bayath Ayasha Nadarha or Asarha Asar Il Napasha Bashaba I. Verse 12. Do you have it as ha?
Yeah.
So Bashaba Iha?
Yeah. You don't have the H at the end?
I have it connected, which is weird.
Oh, okay.
What is this is the end of 11?
Yeah.
Verso shall stand.
Same one.
Awe.
Right?
Awe is her soul or spirit.
Same one. It is right. Ba.
Yeah, Bashema I, but it makes. I mean, I always question because it's I and a ha connection has always been interesting to me. And I was talking with what's his name up in Newark? Always there with the Hebrew. I can't get his name. Isaiah, and he was like, "Yeah, that should be separated." Mm-hmm. Just like I was reading Ayashha in the Nadarha, Asarha should be Bashaba Iha, right?
Yeah, forbid or Shar. Okay.
Right. Verse 12, Washamai Ayashha Wahakarash Laha La'a Hana Yam Athar Wa Kwamwa Ko Nadaryaha Wa Ko Asar Ashara Asarha Il Napasha Yakwam, verse 13.
You see the hard end and each of these words, but
Yeah. 13. Wa Hapar Yapar Atham Ayash Salak Ayasha Bayawum Shamaiwa Ko Mawa Taza Shapathyaha Lana Daryaha Wala Sar Napasha La'a Yakwum Ayasha Haparma Wayahawa Yasalak Laha, verse 14. Ko Nadar Wako Shaba'ith Asar La'ainath Napash Ayasha Yakwa Yamanwa Wa'a Yasha Yapa Runwa, verse 15. Wa'am Hakarash Karash. Yeah. Hakarash Yakara Yash Laha Ayasha Mayawum Ol Yawum Waha Kwum Salak Waha Kwa Yum Athko Nadaryaha or Athko Asaryaha Ashara Alyaha Hakwa Yum Athum Khiya Hakarash Laha Bayawum Shamaiwa, verse 16. What? You just have 16? It was fun. I have a 17. You have 16. Why do I have 17? 16. Yeah, I have 15, 16. I just did 15. Now I'm going to 16. Then you have anything after 16? Yeah, I know it's after, but there's nothing after 16. Okay. So, yeah, because in the English it's 16 verses. That's why. So they must split something up in the English. There's no 17 verse in English. So you see that in the modern too. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the verses must have got added in together. So 16. Yeah. Wa'am Hapar Yapar Atham Akarya Shemaiwa Wana Ath I won or 17. Oha Hakakim Ashar Taza War Yahweh Ath Mashar Bunya Ayash La Shaswa Bunyan, so like Bayan Abba Laba, so like Labathwa Bana Aryaha Bayath Abiyaha. Yeah. So that verse 16 is father's house. Bayath Abiyaha, father's house.
About this father.
Right.
And yeah, like off, right? And that. No,
Yeah.
Father of her. Oh, yeah. Must be off and her is high, right?
Right. So that's 17, even though what's that 17 is that 16th verse. So something else must have got combined.
They put it in.
No, it's in there because I ended it with yeah. It's like the Prego sauce. It's in there. It's in there. Be good. Be
Did
good.
they show it?
Huh?
I don't have it in mind.
Have what?
17 verse.
Yeah, I know that. But I'm saying when I just read that 17th verse, the 17th verse is the 16th verse in the English. I gotta run this thing on my computer.
Okay.
Got me now? One second here as we get back to the English. Why is this not running? All right. All right. So now in English, Numbers 30:1. And it reads, it says, and Moses spake unto the heads of the tribes concerning the children of Israel, saying, this is the thing that the Lord hath commanded. Verse 2, if a man vow a vow unto the Lord, or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceedeth out of his mouth. Right? So now when it comes to oaths or bonds, this is now what a man is bound to keep. Don't want to use the word bound again, but you make an oath. So you make a vow or you make a bond, something to bond you into something. You now have to fulfill that obligation, whatever it is that you said to the Most High. Right now, back in, I want to say Leviticus. I want to say the 20. This is a few months ago. We went into Leviticus, the 27th chapter. Leviticus 27 chapter also went into vows that a person would make to the Most High. And what happened in Leviticus, the 27th chapter, the Most High was given the statutes on if you made a vow, what the estimation would be to redeem yourself out of the vow. Right? That's what the Most High did. So it dealt with a person vowing a vow to do some type of service to the Most High. It dealt with animals that a person would vow to provide to the Most High. It dealt with different things like a house or a sanctuary that you would to dedicate or give to the Most High. It dealt with certain age of persons, whether you're a child up to an old elderly person, and how much that redemption money was going to be as estimated by the priest to relieve yourself of the vow, right? But when you make that vow, have the consideration that you want to go and fulfill that vow, right? So when you read, because we went through it, several months ago in the Sabbath service, go back into your notes and look at those verses again, but you can link Leviticus 27 chapter up with Numbers the 30th chapter because it goes into vows, right? So one could look at a vow as like a promise to do or give something that you now constrain yourself to obligate to fulfill, right? And then if you wanted to look at like a bond, it's like you are putting yourself that you promise to do something. You're bonding yourself to something that needs to be fulfilled to the Most High or by another person, right?
Leviticus 27.
Leviticus 27 chapter. I didn't write this down. The whole chapter. The whole chapter deals with vows and the estimation of relieving or redeeming yourself from a vow for specific things, right? Because it goes through about 7 or 8 specific things, maybe I think 8 or 9 that you would be able to redeem from the priest from the vow, right? But now, before we go further into this, with verse 2, you can link up Deuteronomy chapter 23. Deuteronomy chapter 23 and verse 21 to 23. So again, that's Deuteronomy 23 verses 21 to 23. Somebody read that. Biblical shot. Deuteronomy 23 and 21.
Deuteronomy 23, verse 21. When thou shalt vow a vow unto the Lord thy God, thou shalt not slack to pay it.
Mm-hmm.
For the Lord thy God would surely require it of thee, and it would be sin in thee.
Right. So when you make that vow, make sure you gotta act on that vow and pay it, especially to the Most High. And if not, that's a sin. Right? Now it's transgression. Read on.
Verse 22. But if thou shalt forbear to vow, it shall be no sin in thee.
Right. You forbear the vow, meaning you don't constrain yourself to these things. This is kind of where Yahushua says, you know, in the New Testament, we'll get that in a minute, about like your yea be yea and let your nay be nay. Right? Read on.
Verse 23. That which is gone out of thy lips thou shalt keep and perform, even a free will offering, according as thou hast vowed unto the Lord thy God, which thou hast promised with thy mouth.
Right. So whatever comes out of thy lips, whatever you speak or utter in reference to a vow to the Most High, make sure that you perform and keep it. Whatever it is that you make to the Most High, right? Now, go to Psalms 76 and 11. So in Psalms 76 and 11, got your hand up? You got it? All right, you can read it.
Psalm 76 and 11. Vow and pay unto the Lord, your God. Let all that be around about him bring present unto him that ought to be feared.
Right. So it says vow and pay. So now the reason why I'm putting these precepts, because it goes into the importance of what the vows are to the Most High, or how the Most High looks at that as an agreement between you two, a pledge that you have now made to him. Right. So throughout scripture, he kind of gives these reminders of when you make that vow, right? Sometimes you may be going through something emotional. You may be desiring something, and then you make that vow, and then time goes by, and then you may have a change of heart, a change of mind. No, right? If you have that type of emotion, say again. Yeah, if you have that type of mentality, it's best that you don't do it, right? That's why it says this. Go to Ecclesiastes, 5th chapter. Ecclesiastes, the 5th chapter, and the 4th verse. Gabar, if you could read that, Baba Shah. Five and 4.
Ecclesiastes, 5th chapter, 4th verse. When thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay it, for he has no pleasure in fools. Pay that which thou hast vowed.
So you're considered a fool if you make a vow to the Most High and don't want to pay or exact that which you have now pledged to the Lord, right? Make sure you fulfill it.
Right.
Read on.
Better is it that thou shouldest not vow than that thou shouldest vow and not pay.
Right. So it's better you don't even do it at all instead of you making the pledge and then not paying or fulfilling your pledge, right?
Right.
Read on.
Suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin, neither say thou before the angel that it was an error. Wherefore should God be angry at thy voice and destroy the work of thy hand?
Right. So don't let your mouth get you behind in something and get you in trouble, right? Be very cautious what you say, especially when it pertains to your oaths or your pledges, or, you know, sometimes you may be in a rut. Sometimes you may desire to have something tangible, something mental or spiritual. Right. And then you make that promise to the Most High. Says, Most High, if you give me this breakdown, or if you give me that job, you give me that spouse, you give me whatever it is, I vow to do this such and such for you. I'll do this for you, right? Because you desire that thing so much, right. And then time pass, then you have a change of heart. Well, that's on you. The vow is done. That's bound now. So don't go back and say, oh, it was a mistake. I made an error. I made a slip of the tongue. Nah, that's why it says that, right? Better, you should not do it at all. Instead, you put yourself in sin by uttering just vain words when you know you can't fulfill them. James, 2nd chapter. Sorry, James, the 5th chapter. 5th chapter, not the 2nd. Twelfth verse. I'll read this one. 5th chapter, 12th verse, and then we'll get the link up with this that's in the Gospels from Yahushua. So James 5 and 12, but above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by the earth, neither by any other oath, But let your yea be yea and your nay be nay, lest you fall into condemnation. Right? So refrain from swearing, from oaths, from vows, if you can, if it doesn't require it. Right? And then the precept with that, when Yahushua made mention of it, is in Matthew, the 5th chapter. Fifth. Matthew's 5th chapter, 33 to 37. So Matthew's 5:33, it says, again, ye have heard that and have been said by them of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths, which we had just been reading, right? But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. But let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay, for whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil, right? So this goes beyond just your vows that you make with the Most High. This goes into your communication that you may have with brethren or those of the nation, where you want to make strong your agreement by swearing on something. Well, you swear on your children, you swear on your parents, you swear on something. I swear by Jerusalem that I'm going to make it. The Lord said, don't do that, because that's going to bring forth evil communication, because you don't have the authority or the power by way to swear on all of these things. Even yourself, because we don't really control that. We're the Most High's property, right? The spirit that we have is borrowed from the Most High. When the Lord requites it, then it's like, okay, now it's time for you to come up. You can't stop and say, no, not yet. Give me about a few more years. No, the Lord's going to bring back. So you don't have that authority or power to swear on yourself or anyone or anything else.
Right.
Go ahead. No, I wouldn't put that with this. This is like in this reference, you don't have power to, like, you know how like a house shall have power to do and change things and make things this or make things that, make water to wine. You don't have that authority like a superior power to alter or change those things. Right? Like, you know, putting color and things in your hair, I wouldn't associate that to this. Become a what? Oh, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. Yeah. All right, so that was Matthew 5:33 to 37. So now, yeah, when you read it in it's like leprosy of the hair, leprosy of the skin. When you read it, I think it's Leviticus, was it 10? Right, 13. When you read Leviticus 13. Yeah, 13:14 goes into leprosy and all of the different attributes of it. You have clean lepers and you have unclean lepers, and it goes to the skin and goes to the hair. 13:14 goes into the law pertaining to it. Actually, I think there's one verse, if I remember where it is, that stands out.
in clean language.
Yeah, it's not there. I'll find it later. Now let's go back to Numbers 30.
Bright spot.
Mm-hmm.
Bright spot. White.
Nope. So Numbers 30:2 again, it says, if a man vow a vow unto the Lord, or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceedeth out of his mouth. Right. So if a man does this, he's now in the pecking order where he knows and understand what he's getting himself into. He has to fulfill it. Right. Verse 3. If a woman also vow a vow unto the Lord and bind herself by a bond, being in her father's house in her youth, right? So now man has a daughter, right? She's in his house. She's still in her youth, and she goes and proceeds to make a vow unto the Most High, right? Verse 4, and her father hear her vow, and her bond wherewith she hath bound her soul, and her father shall hold his peace at her, that all her vows shall stand, and every bond wherewith she had bound her soul shall stand, right? So now the father has the authoritative position to allow or disallow the vow or the oath or the bond that she's put herself into, right? So if he hears of it, right? And sometimes it may be, she could be in another room, or she could be somewhere else, or she could come to him and tell him whatsoever to be. When he now has knowledge of it, he can disannul the vow, right? Yeah. The Most High has given him that power and authority to disannul his daughter's vow. Right. Go to 1 Corinthians. Right. Yeah, I jumped ahead a little bit. 1 Corinthians 11 and 3. First Corinthians 11 chapter, 3rd verse. I think you're going the wrong way. When you at Romans? Yeah, keep going forward. Yeah, keep going. Jump ahead to 11 chapter. So 11 and 3 says, but I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is power, or the Most High God, right? So because Christ is the head of man, he's now our advocate. He's the one that can annul or disannul, if he chose to, whatever vow that we have to the Most High, right? Now man is the head of the woman, right? So it's going to be whether a woman is under her father, and as we're going to read down, or a woman is under her husband, that man has the authority over the woman to make sure he allows or disallows her vows based on what he hears, right? So this is the reason how we that understanding that what we're reading now in the past is the same as what now the authority that was placed on man by the Most High and Yahushua still continues up until today.
Right.
So now going back to Numbers 30. So Numbers 30 and 3 again, it says, if a woman also vow unto the Lord and bind herself by a bond being in her father's house in her youth, and her father hear the vow, and her bond wherewith she have bound her soul, and her father should hold his peace, meaning he don't say anything, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond wherewith she have bound her soul shall stand. But if her father disallow her in the day that he heareth not any of her vows or of her bonds wherewith she have bound her soul shall stand, and the Lord shall forgive her, because her father disallowed her, right? Because the vow, everybody's supposed to make sure they fulfill their promise.
Right.
But now if he comes in, whether the second, third day, it's like, nah, first, second, third, and nah, you're not, that's not going down. You made an ill-advised vow, or we had some other things that you probably weren't aware of. You can't do that. You're too young to know, whatever.
Right.
Can't do it. The Most High is not going to hold her accountable for that.
Right. But the father spoke up.
Because the father spoke up, and the father is given that authority, right? It says, verse 6, and if she had at all an husband, so she's not in her father's house anymore, she's been married off. Now she's under her husband's authority, still fulfilling 1 Corinthians 11 and 3. And she vowed or uttered out of her lips wherewith she bound her soul, and her husband hear it, and held his peace at her in the day that he heard it, then her vow shall stand, and her bonds with which she bound her soul shall stand. Right? So now it's the same case. The husband is now taking the role over the wife as the father did the daughter.
Right.
Now it's a carryover. He now can do the same thing. The husband can do the same thing as what the father did when she was in his house. Now she's in her husband's house. Verse 8, but if her husband disallowed her on the day that he heard it, then he shall make her vow which she vowed, and that which she uttered with her lips, wherewith she bound her soul, of none effect, and the Lord shall forgive her. Right? Now, keep in mind, this works when the household is in the truth, right? It's like, you have a partial split household when one person is Methodist and the other person is an Israelite, or one person is a Muslim and the other person is an Israelite. It's difficult to kind of conform and operate wholly in this when you have that dynamic, right? Because the other is not going to fully understand this law, right? And it makes it a little bit more difficult for each party to even look to the other for the fulfillment of the whole law, right? Because some aspects that person is not going to fully understand or care to want to uphold what's in here, right? And sometimes they may be selfish for selfish reasons of what things they want to do and what things they choose not to do. So that's why it's kind of difficult in that manner to keep and uphold all of these laws. So it's the same thing when we were here this evening in the class and we were talking with Amaziah, I think that's his name, he says Hebrew name, where I said, when people talk about fulfilling all the 611 laws, right? The 611 laws did not apply to everybody. Because there were different laws set aside for different people, right? Like Levites had laws set aside for them that Zebulonites and Naphtalites and Judites could not fulfill. So that was not for them, but it was for all Israel to observe and understand that if you wanted to do that, the law prohibited you from doing it, but it required them to do it. And then even within the tribe, certain laws now are required for them. Like comes out of line of Aaron to be a priest, comes out of line of David to be a king. Right? So not just because you was a Judite was you stepping up to the throne now in these last days, or following that time when the Most High anointed David that you was going to be a priest. So certain things didn't apply to you. Right? So now even here today, as we're looking at this, if you wanted to rehearse the righteous acts like we talked about before, maybe a little bit difficult when you now go into your spouse or you're in your father's house and you're talking dad, and dad is a hardcore Baptist and he's a reverend. He's saying, look, we don't keep the laws of God no more. We ain't got to keep that stuff. What are you talking about? Right? But to some degree, he's still fulfilling the aspects of a father watching and over and keeping over his daughter.
Right.
Same thing with a husband being the head of household, watching over and keeping fulfillment and the protection of his wife. Right. So that aspect, that dynamic is spread throughout, where a lot of nations, a lot of people understand it, but not to this here, not to scripture, not to things like this. Right. Because promises that folks make today, they're not doing it to the power of the Bible. They're doing it to Caesar Borgia. They're doing it to some figment that they have in their mind. They're not doing it to the Lord and the Lord of the Bible. Right. That's why you got to understand all those dynamics. Right. So now going back to verse 8. But if a husband disallowed her on the day that he heard it, then he shall make her vow which he vowed, and that which she uttered with her lips, wherewith she bound her soul of none effect, and the Lord shall forgive her. But, verse 9, every vow of a widow, right, meaning she had a husband, and the husband has died, he's passed on, and now she's without a husband. And her that is divorced, meaning she was put away by a bill of divorcement from her husband. Now they don't have anyone over them as far as for a male figure, right? Wherewith they have bound their souls shall stand against her, right? So now they don't have anybody disallowing their vows, right? Now they're recused from that. Now they're on their own. Now they have to make sure that whatever they got to, their responsibility is to fulfill whatever they say. Verse 10, and if she vowed in her husband's house or bound her soul by a bond with an oath, and her husband hear it and held his peace at her and disallowed her not, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond with which she bound her soul shall stand. So it's reiterating the fact again about the vows and the bonds that a woman does in her father's house or in her husband's house, right? But if her husband hath utterly made them void on the day he heard them, then whatsoever proceeded out of her lips concerning her vows or concerning the bond of her soul shall not stand, and her husband have made them void, and the Lord shall forgive her. And that's what the thing that I point out, it says on the day he heard them, right? Because it's not always instantaneous, right? It's not always right away when a woman is making a vow that the party, the father, the husband is there. They found out about it later. Then they can make that decision, right?
Once they hear it.
Right, once they hear it. Go to 1 Samuel's. First Samuel's the first chapter. Let me know when you get it. First chapter, first verse. All right. So it says, Samuel's 1:1. Now there was a certain man of Ramoth, it's like Ramath-im Zophim of Mount Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, and Ephrathite. And he had two wives. The name of the one was Hannah, and the name of the other Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. And this man went up out of his city yearly to worship and to sacrifice unto the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. And when the time was that Elkanah offered, he gave to Peninnah his wife, and to all her sons and daughters portions. So the one wife that had children, he gave certain things to when he went to go offer to the Most High in the city of Shiloh, right? Verse 5, but unto Hannah he gave a worthy portion, for he loved Hannah, but the Lord had shut up her womb, right? So he gave a worthy portion to Hannah, who had no children, because he had a little bit more love towards Hannah, right? It says, verse 6, and her adversary also provoked her sore, for to make her fret, because the Lord had shut up her womb, right? So now when it talks about the adversary is Peninnah, right? Because she has children, right? But now Hannah couldn't have any children. So how sometimes women can get a little catty. It's like, yeah, that one over there she can't even bear no kids. I don't even know why you giving her that portion. You need to give it all to me, right? Yeah. And then that makes her feel away, right? Because she's already dealing with her womb being closed, and now seeing his other wife have children, and then she's making his comments, is now making her a bit, down and sorrowful, right? It says, verse 7, and as he did so year by year, when she went up to the house of the Lord, so she provoked her. Therefore she wept and did not eat. So this continued on for a while. Right. Years went by and she continued to do this. Right. Still stayed in the house, still stayed with her husband. Her husband loved her, but this is what she had to put up with. Verse 8, right. Then said Elkanah her husband to Hannah, why weepest thou, and why eatest thou not? And why is thy heart grieved? Am I not better to thee than 10 sons? Right? So why are you sorrowful? So at this point now she's probably fasting, because she's not eating, and she's still in a sorrowful mood because of her condition and what now Peninnah is doing to her. But he's like, listen, ain't I better than 10 sons to you? Why are you upset? You with me. I love you. You love me. We're good, right? But that's not enough. Verse 9. So Hannah rose up after they had eaten in Shiloh, and after they had drunk. Now Eli the priest sat upon a seat by a post of the temple of the Lord. And she was in bitterness of soul and prayed unto Yahweh and wept sore. And she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid and remember me and not forget thine handmaid, wilt give unto thine handmaid a man child, then I will give him. I was just saying this. Yes, but I will give unto thine handmaid a man child. Then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head. So now here it is. She's outside the temple. She makes this vow, right, that if the Most High bless her with a son, right, she's going to dedicate that son to the temple, right, all the days of his life. No razor shall touch his head, right? Verse 12, and it came to pass as she continued praying before the Lord that Eli marked her mouth. But Hannah, she spake in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore, Eli thought she had been drunken, right? So, sometimes people talk without saying, and he's observing her, and he's thinking that she got to be drunk, because she's just saying, I don't know what's going on. She got to have been, having a few flaggings or whatever, and she's standing over here in the corner somewhere and just mouthing off and ain't saying nothing, right? Verse 14, and Eli said unto her, how long wilt thou be drunken? Put away thy wine from thee, right? How long are you going to be like this? Right. You need to stop that. That's not becoming of a woman of the Most High. You be out here drinking like that, right? Verse 15, and Hannah answered and said, no, my Lord, I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I poured out my soul before the Lord. Count not thine handmaid for a daughter of Belial or Satan, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief have I spoken here too. So she's now giving him the sense as to what's going on with her, and that she's not drunk, she don't have spirits on her or anything. She's just a woman that's in sorrow spirits, right? But Eli answered and said, go in peace, and the power of Israel grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him. And she said, let thine handmaid find grace in thy sight. So the woman went away and did eat and her countenance was no more sad. And they rose up in the morning and worshiped before the Lord, and returned and came to their house to Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her.
Right.
So after that departing, now she goes back home. Her and her husband have sex. The Most High allows her to conceive at that moment. Right? 20. When it came to pass, when the time was come about after Hannah had conceived, that she bare a son and called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked him of the Lord.
Right.
And the man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer unto the Lord the yearly sacrifice and his vow.
Right.
But Hannah went not up, for she said unto her husband, I will not go up until the child be weaned, and then will I bring him, that he may appear before the Lord and there abide forever. Right? So now, if we didn't know prior to this verse, if Elkanah knew what his wife had vowed, right, as far as for now her son being dedicated to the Most High, he would have said right here, what you talking about? My son to the Most High? Nah, that's not going down. I'm not allowing that, right? But this is not, as we read on, what Elkanah does. He doesn't disannul, or he doesn't say that's gonna not happen.
Right.
He allows it to happen. So now the vow is gonna be fulfilled. Verse 23. And Elkanah, her husband, said unto her, do what seemeth thee good, tarry until thou have weaned him. Only the Lord establish his word. So the woman abode and gave her son suck until she weaned him. So that now confirmed that the vow was being allowed by Elkanah if he didn't know before. I'm pretty sure he knew already, right? But the verse now gives confirmation that he knew, right? So what we're reading in Numbers 30 is this same circumstance where he hears it and he doesn't do anything.
Right.
He don't say, stop it. He allows it. And then he furthermore goes on and says, do what seemeth good, meaning you got the right thing. You got it. You already know what you're doing. Fine. When the time is right, bring him, and then he's going to stay there, right? Right. So now as you read on down and you get to the last verse, and you'll see Elkanah and Hannah bring the child up to the temple where a priest are, and they deliver him there. And that's when now he's staying there for the rest of his time, as now being brought up by the priest so that he himself can be a priest or a prophet. Right. And that's where you read about this is the beginnings of Samuel. Right. So he was a promise that was fulfilled to Hannah, just like, Rebecca and Sarah and a lot of the other ones who were barren and couldn't have children. And the Most High heard their plights or their prayers and provided them with a son. You just don't see Sarah and Rebecca making a vow like this, that this is what's going to happen now with my son or my daughter, so forth and so on. Gabar.
So Samuel was a Nazarite?
It doesn't go into like he was a Nazarite. It just said he wasn't going to have any hair, his hair trim. But as far as for the wine and no drinking of the grapes and things of that nature, it doesn't specifically say that.
Oh,
He made a pledge. He was allowed to
I
now.
thought it was Samson at first.
Yeah.
Read the book of Samuel. Judges.
So now let's go back to Numbers 30. And we left off at verse 13. 30 and 13.
Right.
It says, every vow and every binding oath to afflict the soul, her husband may establish it, or her husband may make it void. But if her husband altogether hold his peace at her from day to day, then he establisheth all her vows, or all her bonds, which are upon her. He confirmeth them, because he held his peace at her in the day that he heard them. That's like sometimes if you be in a meeting or a discussion with somebody, and at the end of it, somebody say, anybody got any objections? And nobody say nothing. That means everybody's in agreement, because you held your peace. If you had an objection, then you would say, oh no, I ain't with that. Right? So it's the same thing here. By holding your peace,
Right.
you're agreeing or affirming to whatever is being made binding. Verse 15. But if he shall anyways make them void after that he hath heard them, then he shall bear her iniquity. Right?
That'd be on him.
Right. So that's like, here it is. She made the vow. Days go by. You hear it, but you don't do nothing. Right? Now you held your peace. Once you've held your peace, now you're allowing it. But then time goes by again and you're like, nah, I don't want that to go down. No, that's not how you operate. Once you hear it, you got to make that decision in and there.
Right.
Right? Now you, that man now bears that iniquity. That's what it's
That's on
saying.
you.
That's on him.
What do you mean by on him?
Because like what we read before about fulfilling a vow.
Right.
Everybody's supposed to fulfill the vow. Right?
She got to fulfill a vow. Why is he has to fulfill a vow?
No.
She can't fulfill it?
It's not that she has to fulfill it. She was making the vow. She was going to go do it.
Right.
He heard it the first time and didn't say anything.
Right.
So now she's going forth and doing what she's doing. Time goes by and he comes back and says, nah, I'm disannulling that vow. You can't do that. I'm not allowing that to happen.
But you already heard it.
Because you already heard it. Right? Now he has to bear that iniquity because now she's not going to finish fulfilling it.
Oh, okay.
Now he bears that. Because remember, we read the scripture when you don't fulfill a pledge of vow to the Most High that you said you was going to do, that's a sin.
Right.
So now she's not had a fault with that. Now he is.
It stands on him.
Because he now he's the authoritative figure in the household.
He got to
He's the one that's like saying what he can and can't do as it pertains to this vow. So now it's on him.
Right.
So now what that does is it makes sure that the man is on point with what he's going to do when he hears it. You can't delay, right? You can't be wishy-washy.
Right.
You hear it, you make the righteous decision, and then you say, okay, fine. I'm not allowing it right now as I'm hearing it, or you know what? I hear it, it makes sense. Go forth and do what you need to do.
So I can I ask a quick question?
Con.
When people in this country get married,
Uh-huh.
when they do the civil marriage, are they vowing to each other, or are they making a vow like to each other in quote unquote the presence of the Most High, or are they vowing to the Most High when they get married in this world?
Say again? Would you? No, I'm not you, Michael Dash. Not you, Michael Slot. Y'all can answer the same. What'd you say?
They just make it about the state.
Right.
They just state or whatever.
Yeah. Because and I would think that to be subjective, right? Because your vow is your vow, right? I mean, they have things on paper, and I don't even remember, but
I
remember
didn't hear what he said. I didn't hear what he said.
he said to the state.
Okay.
He said they're making a vow to the state. And I don't remember or confirm, what the writing. I have to look it up and see what, if they have like a printed out thing that you got to go and do and say when you go to the civil court that says that, you vow to take your husband or wife and what other things is written in there. But again, it's going to be, in my mind, subjective to the individual, right? Because just like Hannah, when she went to the temple, she prayed or she spoke without speaking any words, right? So as you're standing there, he can be saying all this and that, but I could be making my own vow in my spirit that I want to make before the Most High that we know in the scriptures. Somebody who's in the world, they may make a vow to their spouse. They may make a vow to the state. They may make a vow to Caesar Borgia. They may make a vow to the figment of who they think the Most High is, right? Because again, it's all based on the image of what the Most High is to you according to scripture.
Let me read this very quickly.
Yeah.
Acts 23:12. It says, and when it was day, certain of the Jews banded together and bound themselves under a curse, saying that they would neither eat nor drink till they had killed Paul.
Okay, so what's the point?
So they just make that vow, that bound that is, that it wasn't going to happen.
That say it again.
No, they made that bond or curse that they're going to do that until they, till they have killed Paul. But Paul didn't get a chance to kill Paul.
Right.
So that is,
They made a vow for
yeah,
But they vowed to themselves,
yeah,
though.
they vowed
God.
to themselves.
Mhm.
Say it again. The devil.
Actually, when you look at
Oh. Acts 23:12.
no, when you look at it, Israel as a whole, we've entered into a curse, right? We've entered into a curse because if you look at it that way, it is like, all right, we're not going to do this until we've done that, or we're going to do this for you, and if not, we're going to get that. That's Israel entered into it because there's a penalty for not doing something that you say that you're going to do. So that's the curse of the law that we've entered into. So you can write down Nehemiah 10 and 29.
Nehemiah what?
Nehemiah 10 and 29. So Nehemiah 10 and 29 says, they clave to their brethren, their nobles, and entered into a curse and into an oath to walk in God's law, which was given by Moses, the servant of God, and to observe and to do all the commandments of the Lord, our Lord, and his judgments and his statutes, and that we would not give our daughters unto the people of the land, nor take their daughters for their sons. And if the people of the land bring ware of or any victuals on the Sabbath day to sell, that we would not buy it of them or them on the Sabbath or on the holy day, and that we would leave the 7th year and the exaction of every debt. So this is, you'll read it in Deuteronomy, it'll just say an oath. But as you read on, there's judgments that come for not keeping the law, right? Remember in Deuteronomy 28, it says, if you will not hearken and listen to me, all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. But we made that agreement. Yeah, Most High, we agree. So now if you do good, you get the benefits and the glory. But if you don't fulfill the oath, you don't fulfill your promise, this curse is now, or these curses is going to come upon you, right? So, huh? Sooner or later, right? So the judgment of the Most High can happen right quick, fast, in a hurry, or it can happen at any dispensation of time that the Lord chooses, right? So that's the thing about vows, agreements, oaths, right? It has stipulations. You got to fulfill it, right? Now, with what my sister Michael Dodge was talking about, thinking off the top of my head, right? In that vow, it doesn't go into the curse or, a vow to, be with you in sickness and in health and this, that, and third. It says, till death do us part, meaning I'm bound to you until then. But, there's no, okay, if I don't do that, then what? Then that's when now the Most High has to step in, and then he makes that judgment on how he wants to inquire a punishment or judgment on you for not fulfilling what it is you said you were going to be obligated to.
So when you get married, you get the vow. You give next mistake, right?
You're supposed to be doing the vow to between the two of you in front of the Most High. That's the theory, right? The state can say what they want, because that's how you have, sometimes people will go up and get married. They make their own vows up, right? Yeah. They make their own vows up before the presence of the Most High. And that's kind of where I'm looking at it from a spiritual perspective, because everybody ain't spiritual according to the scriptures, right? Everybody's not bound according to law, according to how the Lord's will is. They're following different philosophies and doctrines. So their perception of what they're going to get themselves into may be jaded, right? So that's why I say it's going to be subjective as to how that is. But if you go down to City Hall and they give you a piece of paper, or whoever that guy presiding over the officiating over that little ceremony, whatever he's reading, then you got to look at that and say, okay, yeah, this is what I'm agreeing to, right? Now, it may be in accordance with trying to say, hey, you're going to be his wife. You're going to be her husband. I mean, you're going to be, his wife, and you're going to be her husband, and you're supposed to be bound according to these rules or whatever's in there, right? So some people like to change it. You got some people who like, what does it say for the wife? That most wives, when they do their vows, they don't like that part about being subject to their husbands. It's like, oh, no, I'm taking that out of my vow. I don't want that. You know, it's like a 50-50 relationship. Who am I? I got to be under my husband. Right. Most women, because you know, the traditional vows that people do, you know, has that in there by default that says that a woman is going to be under her husband. Today's women don't like that, right? Well, going back some 30, some odd years. Yeah, so they'll look to remove any remnants or anything that speaks to that because they don't want to be held in a vow to it, right? Because that's supposed to be the case in sickness in the house. It was like, oh, my wife gets sick or my husband gets sick, I ain't just bouncing, right? He gets in a car accident, something happened, now he's disabled. It's like, oh man, he can't get around like he used to. We used to always go out to the bars, and now he can't do nothing. He just sitting there. Man, I'm out, right? Now you breaking the vow, you breaking the agreement, you breaking that pledge that you made, right? So certain things, they don't want to have certain words to be bound to them. So they'll change them for their own purpose, right? Right, yeah. A woman and woman marriage and a man and man marriage. Yeah. And what's interesting, in 85 to 90% of those marriages, same-sex marriages, you will see someone is playing or is given the image of a masculine gender, right? And someone else is of the feminine gender, right? Someone is kind of just like, it just gravitated to being the masculine one in the relationship. And one gonna be the feminine. So usually you'll see, you can just spot, like if you're walking around downtown or you somewhere, you'll see one looks more manly-ish, wear more pants and just kind of, hair's cut short and everything else. Whereas the other partner looks more regular feminine. They'll wear, longer hair and be little nails done and everything else to fit that role, because that is just nature. Right? But they're like, the scriptures tell you, they're going against nature. So it's like you fighting with it. And that's what happens. All right. But back to the vow, yes. It'll be subjective and based on your understanding of of God and what you're pledging to. But the specifics of what they give, I don't remember what they give. Like, I have to look it up online to see what the formality is that they do. So for me, you got to have your marriage license and all that. So you have to go and go to the state and get your marriage license. But then, I followed it up with my own ceremony, with my own vows and my own words, and I, try to incorporate, things out of the scriptures that I am obligated to. So like you read the New Testament, it talks about things that a husband has to do for his wife and kids, that a wife needs to do with her husband, right? In that order, right? That's what we're bound to, because it's law. It's in the scriptures, right? Certain things, you may say other things, but the law is the law. You can't get around that. So again, like we just read in Nehemiah, once you have agreed and have entered into that, then you're bound, right? Once you understand the will of the Most High, then now the husband is bound to this, the wife is bound to this, right? So you can't really want to shake, or go beyond that. You may add your own little thing in there, but the law is the law. Right. You got to stay in tune with that.
Yeah, when I got married,
Huh?
I mean, I went and got my papers down too long, but I got married somewhere else. I just had my license.
Right.
Well, other than that, got my license. I got married somewhere else. Up down now. I mean, look at that.
Yeah. I mean, and again, because it's the laws of the land that you got to have some form of record.
Ready to show that you.
Yeah. You got to have a license, right? You got to have, I mean, like for a lot of things that you do, Esau has to have some form of documentation and payment, right? And payment, because you got to go pay for a marriage license. You got to pay for a driver's license, pay for a marriage license, pay for a license to go sell food on the corner. All that, you got to have a license. If you don't have a license, that means you haven't come to him that says, this is what I want to do. Right. That's what you want to do? All right, fine, pay me. Now I give you a receipt. The receipt is the license. All right, go ahead and do what you need to do. You know? Okay. Yeah. So now back in Numbers 30. And I don't remember if I'm at 15, but I'll read it. But if he shall anyways make them void, after that he have heard them, then he shall bear her iniquity. 16. These are the statutes which the Lord commanded Moses between a man and his wife, between the father and his daughter, being yet in youth in her father's house. Right? So this is again the order of what the father or the husband has with the woman in their household. Right? That a man can do these things as it pertains to vows, specifically vows. And then you read on other scriptures about things that a man has to do in his household for the family and the wife, or for the children and the wife, and vice versa. Right? That's where you get like Proverbs, the 30th chapter about the virtuous woman. You get in Colossians, you get in Ephesians, all these scriptures that gives you here a little, there a little, to precept all together how a marriage is supposed to operate, how parenthood is supposed to operate, how as a child is supposed to operate, how brotherhood is supposed to operate, how a servant is supposed to operate, how a minister is supposed to operate, how a priest is supposed to operate. So all of these, it's like whatever 6 or 7 I just routed off, there's verses for all to keep in order. Right? And as I said, in hindsight, those was good, quick topics to have the scriptures on. Brotherhood, minister, fatherhood, motherhood, husband, wife, right? All of those is 6, 7, 8, 10 verses to go for each and every one of them. Exactly.
But this day and time, they ain't doing it.
Right, because we're not bred in this. We're not uprooted in it. We're not taught it in mainstream. Took it out of schools. Took it out of politics. Right? Nothing is being guided. Like how they separate church and state. We don't separate. We didn't separate the kingdom from the priesthood in a manner where the kings don't have to abide by the law. They can do what they want, and they can do what they want over here. Nah, it was a harmony. It was a perfect marriage between all factions on keeping everything according to the Lord's will. That's not how it's done in today's setup.
The king should write this law, keep a copy for himself.
The king himself. That's why, if you really paid attention to the priest and the king, right? The priest and the king were the 2 top figureheads within the nation, especially the high priest and the king of Israel, were the 2 top figureheads in Israel, right? The high priest held a certain distinction and privilege that nobody else had. The king had a certain prestige and privilege that no one else holds, right? Those 2 individuals, the top of the food chain within Israel, both have their own separate power structure, but they work together. Right? Work together. Right? So it's not like, it's divided how you have in today's setup where everyone's over here do what they want. They got to be taxed. They ain't got to listen to them. They can make their own judgment. Then over here, they can say what they want. They can, they can't make laws for this one. This one can't judge that. Nah, that's not how it is. Right? It was all working in perfect harmony. That's why you even seen the priests with the king. When the king went out to do certain mission out the war, you had priests with them. Right? When he had to make offerings, the king went into his kitty and his treasury and gave all that he had to the priests. It wasn't like they were separated. They was there together. Somebody had their hand up. Khadijah. So when you say before, how far back you talking? So First Maccabees 1:14, where it says, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen.
We didn't hear her.
So a question was before the Maccabees, or no, before we were in captivity under the heathen, did we have a school system set up where we would, I guess, teach, these principles and these rules? And she's referencing back to First Maccabees 1:14. Do you know what that is talking about in First Maccabees 1:14? Okay, in those days went out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. But since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. Right? So going back to verse 14 is now when it talks about the place of exercise at Jerusalem. Now the Greeks had their own way of life, right? Their dress was even different from us, right? That's why you see, in all their architectures, they walked around with just a sheet on them. Right? Nothing underneath, no undergarments, right? To the point where their appetite for, exquisite art is just showing half naked, full naked men and women, right? And some of these architectures are still standing today as it was built back then. So now they built a place of exercise which is like a gymnasium. In the gymnasium, they used to be naked in the gymnasium, right? Today, you go to certain gyms, like especially of the nations or Esau on them, you go to certain gyms, you see people just walking around naked, right? Because that's the custom of the nations. In the locker rooms, right? But back in the day, it was a lot more open than just the locker rooms, right? But now here it is, when these wicked men are joining themselves to the heathen, this is now the same as what we've always had, going back to when Joshua and them was going into the land of Canaan. The Most High warned that we don't give our sons to their daughters and their daughters to our sons, because just the interaction, the consistent interaction, now that you're making marriages, you are going to learn of their ways, right? Instantaneously, the first schools was right in the house. We was homeschooled, right? It was taught right from the house about the Most High, about our history, about the laws and eating and what things we worship. That started at home. Right? And then as you went outside your immediate home, you should see the same things going on everywhere else. So now as a child is growing up, and now if their mind starts to wander, they're supposed to see the same things everywhere else. But if you are in another custom, another country, as they say, when in Rome, do as a Roman. So now you're there, they have their own custom. So you walk out, you see everybody doing whatever that is. So then you now become inclined to learn of that. Well, what is that? What y'all eating? What y'all watching? What y'all wearing? Where y'all going? Right? And then you now over time learn of that way. So they built the exercise place in Jerusalem, and you're like, what's that? No, we shouldn't go there. Hear these men. No, it's not bad. You should go up in there. You go up in there, you like, yo, what is this? Hey, it's cool. Listen, you be all right. This is something cool. This is the new thing that we doing now. People put a spin on it. This is the new thing that we doing now. You just got to get hip. Don't turn up. Open up your mind to it, right? And then over time, you begin to understand their customs and get lured into following their ways. And it's not like you have to be in a room like how we go to school now, elementary school. You learn your ABCs and so you learn right from the world. You learn right from the society. You got a lot of these rappers and drug dealers that they ain't even going to school. But they're learning, they know ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and how to count that money right from the streets of hard knock, right? So we learn from a lot of our environment back then, right? But it started in our homes. So now if I go get with a girl and she is Elam and she's coming to my house and she's looking and saying, what's that? oh, that's such and such, and that's this and that's that. Then I go over to her house, I'm like, oh, what's that? Right? And I'm seeing new things. We both see new things, and then now we cohabitate together. Right. She's going to be influenced from what her parents taught her, and then she's not going to come to me, hey, can you put this up for me? Can you do this for me? Like what happened with King Solomon, right? He had these wives of other nations, and they convinced him to set up their groves and their altars that they learned from their people, right, that we shouldn't have been a part of. And that corrupted his heart. It corrupts anyone's heart to a certain extent if you indulge in it a lot.
Right.
So he got involved. Majority of folks have gotten involved. If you look at society, we've gotten involved, right?
Can't hear her.
I'm gonna repeat it. Mm-hmm. 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 No. So as you read further on, and when you just look into Greek culture, you would just go into history, right? History itself would say, did that happen? Did they have a school set up like that within Jerusalem that people now had to come and do this? Or based on how it's written, did they actually set up these different temples, these different gymnasiums and things to now introduce us to their culture, right? That's where that comes from. And I think if it's in, so now if you go to 2 Maccabees 6, to go into the custom and the philosophy of the heathens, this is kind of touch on to it. So what the sister mentioned, just to for those who couldn't hear, she's like in her 1611, it references, instead of the gym places of exercise, that it references schools. They set up schools in Jerusalem. It wasn't like a gymnasium or a place for physical exercise. It was a school, and that's where they went and set up places that we were taught, like learning, to go there and be taught the customs, as opposed to the different things they established that Israel now was forced to learn. So now 2 Maccabees 6 and 4. So it's like a 3. 2 Maccabees 6 and 3, it says, the coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people, for the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and besides that, brought in things that were not lawful, right? So now going into their psyche, if you paid attention, if you ever watched Greek movies, Rome, and other things like that of Esau in the past, this is their lifestyle. Even watching, I'm a Game of Thrones watcher, even watching Game of Thrones, when they have victories and they, go to certain places, they just out in the doggone streets having sex. Just any and everywhere, in the corners, here and there, just having sex. So reading this goes into that same mentality of how Esau was back then as the Greeks or the Romans, where it says, for even the temple, we're not even talking about out in the streets, so out in their own open areas. What was most important to us was that they was even doing this in the temple. They had no regard for holy structures. So it says the temple was filled with riot and revelings by the Gentiles. They getting drunk, having all different type of parties and banquets and things in there. Then it says who dallied with harlots. You got whores in the temple having all kind of orgies and things of that nature. This was crazy, right? So now you got certain wicked men that we read in the first chapter who was involved in this. They were fine with this. They brought them in and gave them license to do it because they were looking for position and authority themselves. Right. Like you read in 2 Maccabees, Menelaus. Same thing happens today. What is your verse that you used earlier today? Trim your way.
trim that way to seek love.
That you trim your way to seek love, meaning the things that you are supposed to stand for, you hold it back a bit, right? You change it up so that you can get the love or the admonishment of someone else for them to put you up on a certain level. So you trim back the fat, you trimmed away. You're supposed to have a full coat, but you took it off so that you could be perceived a certain way. So you had these wicked men who did that. They were supposed to be about the Most High, but they didn't. They went and chose to now bend and adhere to heathenic customs, right? So a lot of that and a lot of it was forced on us, because as you read further down in that same chapter, it wasn't even anything that, a school thing was set up. They forced us to not even do what we wanted to do and keeping and serving the Most High. If I hear you say that you're a Jew, put something down on record that you're a Jew, there's judgment coming. You want to sacrifice your son on the 8th, sacrifice him at all, judgment is coming. We see you congregating on the Sabbath day, judgment is coming. So just by that right of death being imposed upon you, the quick influence was either I'm going to die righteously or I'm going to give in to iniquity and say, okay, I'm going to follow this. I'm just going to join in us. Which I eating swine on top of bread? Oh, okay. Try that out, right? Because you want to fit in with them. Are you trying to find that verse? All right. So that concludes today's Sabbath service lesson. Next week, I believe we're in Luke. Because we read Tobit last week, right? So we should be in Luke. Let me get the exact chapters. Luke, it should be 12 and 13. Yeah, Luke 12, 13. And then also keep in mind, for those listening and watching a lot on the teleconference live stream, tomorrow night is the new moon. For those who don't have or were distributed the new moons and high holy days list, please let it be known, and Kahan will be able to send that email out to you if you haven't received it. Again, so new moon, third new moon is next week, tomorrow, sundown, Sunday sundown. All right, sundown here in Philly is about 8 something. About 8, was it 8:20? Yeah, 8:20. Luke 12 and 13 for next week's Sabbath service lesson, and then the new moon tomorrow, Sunday sundown. All right, so with that, we're going to close out the Sabbath service. We're going to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High, Yahweh Shah, for the Sabbath and peace, for the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that came from it. Lord's will, everybody was able to receive it. And for those things that are lacking, the Most High will, that He'll open up their minds. If not, you can bring them up in class if there's any further comments or questions on what we discussed. Tuesday class as well as Friday class is the opportunity to bring those up with the congregation. All right. So with that, we're going to say Shalom, Ashar Shabbat, happy Sabbath to the rest of Israel. Peace, have a remaining peaceful Sabbath, and stay tuned for the closing prayers.
And they got that book in the house. Leave that on the table. And that read books all the time. Try to read big books, read this thick thing here. Like a lot of other people don't have to read.
Somebody get the blinds, Bible question.
I mean, Nathan.
Woke up late. Spirit kept the people all through the class. You don't want him to learn.
Barakata Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Par Yahagaban, Thwada Amun, La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Ath Yasha Allah. And Madwa Punyo Rossum stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Babakushah, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalak, Maya Ka'ala, Waha Alahayan, Tazwadakim, La, Shemal Ayah, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Waha Kazayat, Bunya, Yasha Allah, Washalat, Lanawa, Rabiam, Kakama, Rabiam, Da'ai, Rabiam, Bayana, Rabiam, Sabalanwa, Rabiam, Amawan, Rabiam, Aqua, Rabiam, Ahabiam, Rabiam, Agana, Rakhanaya, Wasalat, Ko, Kata Ayam Nawa, Laha Akim, Wa Akua, Wayasha Allah, Samyad, Waiwalam, Bahasham, Yahawashai, Kowada, Aman. English translation. Most High, in the name of Christ, pleasing to us now, right now. Send Michael and the righteous powers of angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins for the brothers in Israel and Israel always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shah, thank you, so be it. Four corners prayer. Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Bayasha Allah, Wabat Yasaparim, Shema, Yashir Allah, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, in translation, Most High in the name of Christ, bless us in Israel and the house of books. And hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one power. All right, with that, we again say shalom, peace to all Israel, and happy Sabbath.
Shalom.
Shalom.